One person coordinating 40 workers at the same time, 24 hours a day, with no meetings, no payroll, no clashing egos. 5 years ago, that was a mid-sized company with a whole floor of employees. Today, it's starting to be a single person, sitting at a laptop, directing a swarm of artificial intelligence agents that execute, check, and deliver. And here's the detail that changes everything. These agents have started to manage each other. One splits the task, another executes, a third reviews the second's work and sends it back if it's wrong. No human in the middle. The big news of 2026 isn't AI writing a text. That was old. It's AI learning to check its own work and to coordinate others like itself. I won't tell you which profession to pick or promise you'll get rich from this. That's your call. I'll show you something more structural, the most invisible and most powerful piece of the working world, the org chart. That drawing of boxes saying who commands whom is starting to dissolve. And when it dissolves, your place in it changes too. The question stops being where you sit in the hierarchy. It becomes a much stranger one. What's left for the human to do when management itself is automated? Let's start by understanding what an org chart really is, because we treat it like nature, and it isn't. That drawing of boxes, with the boss on top and the teams below, was a very dated invention. It was born to solve a specific problem: how to coordinate many humans who don't fit in one person's head. When companies grew, in the early 20th century, no one could supervise everything directly anymore. So they created layers: managers coordinating workers, directors coordinating managers. The org chart is, deep down, an information processing machine made of people. Each level filters, summarizes, and passes up what's below. The economist Ronald Coase asked a brilliant question about this. If the market is so efficient, why do firms exist? Why not hire each separate task every single time? His answer: because coordinating through the market has a cost of searching, negotiating, trusting, monitoring. The firm exists to lower that coordination cost, putting everything under one roof and one boss. Hold on to that idea, because it's the key to everything. The firm and the org chart are answers to the cost of coordinating. And if some technology drastically drops that cost, the shape of the firm changes with it. That's happened a few times in history, but what's arriving now is of another order entirely. Before going on, I need to clear up a confusion, because the word agent became a buzzword and lost its meaning. An artificial intelligence agent isn't a chatbot that answers questions. The difference is enormous. A chatbot waits for you to ask and hands back text. An agent receives a goal and acts to reach it. It breaks the goal into steps, uses tools, navigates, writes, executes, and keeps going until it's done, without you guiding each stage. Think of the difference between an employee who only responds when asked and one you hand a mission to and they run with it. It's that second category that changed. Until recently, agents were fragile. They'd take 3 right steps and on the 4th get lost, hallucinate, freeze. Why? Because of a simple and brutal technical problem: error compounding. In a chain of many steps, a small error at each step multiplies, and by the end the result is garbage. It was like a game of telephone. The message degrades with each pass. That was the ceiling keeping agents locked to short, supervised tasks. And here's the 2026 turn, the one almost nobody outside the field grasped. That ceiling started to break. The agents learned something that changes the whole game. Wait, and hold on to this, because it's the catch that flips everything. The turn has an unglamorous name and a giant effect: self-verification. Instead of depending on a human to check each step, the agent started checking its own work. And, more importantly, agents started checking each other's. Picture the scene. One agent writes code. A second agent, whose only job is to be a critic, reads that code, finds the flaw, and sends it back. The first corrects it. The second approves. All of it in seconds, with no human in the middle. It's a system of checks and balances made of artificial intelligences. And this attacks exactly the old error compounding problem. If each step is verified and corrected before moving on, the chain stops degrading. Suddenly, long and complex tasks that used to require constant human supervision begin running on their own with a reliability that didn't exist. Careful, because it's easy to overstate this. It doesn't mean agents became perfect or that they fully replaced the human. They still err, and they'll probably keep needing people at critical points. I'm describing a trend, not a miracle, but the direction is unmistakable. The bottleneck that chained AI to small tasks is giving way. And when a chain of agents can coordinate and correct itself, an inevitable question appears, and this is where the org chart begins to tremble. If the agents manage themselves, what's the manager for? Here it gets genuinely new. When you have agents that verify each other, the next step is natural. Organize them into teams. One agent becomes the coordinator. It receives the big goal, breaks it into tasks, and hands them to specialized agents. One that researches, one that writes, one that analyzes data, one that reviews. The coordinator follows along, assembles the pieces, and delivers. Notice what this is. It's an org chart, but an org chart of machines, built and torn down in seconds, depending on the task. Need 10 researchers now and none later? The system creates 10 and dissolves them when done. No human company can hire and fire at the speed of thought. A swarm of agents can. And note the deeper difference from a human team. No ego, no politics, no fatigue, no meeting that could have been an email. Coordination, which in human companies eats a huge slice of everyone's time, becomes nearly free. Remember Coase, back at the start? The firm exists to lower the cost of coordinating. Well, the agents are dropping that cost to a level Coase couldn't have imagined. And when coordinating becomes nearly free, the question that organizes all of work flips. But before we get to that flip, we need to understand what's left for the human in this story. If the agents execute and even coordinate among themselves, what's left for you? The likely answer is one word: orchestrate. Human work shifts from doing the task to directing whoever does it. Think of a conductor. They don't play a single instrument during the concert. Their value is in choosing the piece, defining the interpretation, feeling the whole, and correcting the course. In an age of agents, it's likely many of us work like that. Not playing the instruments, but conducting an orchestra of intelligences. This completely changes what being good at work means. Before, being productive meant doing a lot yourself. Now it starts to mean delegating well to the machine, describing the goal clearly, choosing which agents to use, judging whether what came back is any good, and taking responsibility for the result. It's a different skill from execution, closer to management and judgment than to technique. And here a delicious paradox appears. For decades, we told young people to learn to do, to execute, to master a tool. Suddenly, the skill that rises in value is the one we always associated with bosses, knowing how to direct work that isn't your own. Except now the directed work isn't people's, it's machines. The good news is that this, in theory, democratizes. Anyone with good judgment can command a capability that used to require a whole team. The unsettling one comes right after, and the human managers who lived precisely on coordinating. There's a consequence of this shift that has already begun to appear and will only get more common. The tiny company with the capacity of a giant. Throughout the industrial era, to do big things you needed lots of people. Size was power. A single person had a low ceiling on how much they could produce. The agents raised that ceiling absurdly. People already speak of one-person companies earning what used to require dozens of employees, because that person orchestrates agents for sales, support, production, marketing, and operations at once. I'm not saying every company will become this, nor that large organizations will vanish tomorrow. Projection isn't prophecy, but the direction is clear. The minimum size to do ambitious things is plummeting, and this reorganizes the economy from the bottom up. If a person with good judgment and good agents does the work of 30, value stops being in having many employees and starts being in having the best ideas and the best discernment. Competitive advantage shifts from size to the intelligence of orchestration. On the other hand, and this is the dark side, if one person does the work of 30, what happens to the other 29? That's the question nobody wants to ask out loud. And the answer starts in a specific layer of the company. There's a layer of the company more exposed than any other, and almost nobody talks about it honestly. Middle management. Think about what a middle manager does day to day. Much of the job is coordination. Receive goals from above, split them among the team, track progress, assemble reports, report upward. It's information processing between layers. Exactly what the human org chart was invented to do. And it's exactly what a coordinator agent does, only faster, forgetting nothing, with no weekends. When we watched the earlier episodes of this channel, we talked about artificial intelligence taking over junior knowledge work, the fresh graduates. But the coordination layer, in the middle of the pyramid, is equally vulnerable, and almost nobody was looking at it. I'm not saying every manager will disappear. Many will transform into orchestrators, exactly the role we described. I'm saying the pure function of relaying information between levels, without adding judgment, is the one the machine eats first. The organization tends to get flatter, fewer layers between whoever decides the direction and whoever executes, because the middle coordination gets automated. The companies of the likely future aren't tall pyramids. They look more like a person, or a small core of people with a lot of judgment, commanding a huge base of agents. And that leads to the most important question of all. What, in the end, can the machine not decide? If execution and coordination migrate to the machine, it's fair to ask seriously, is anything essentially human left? The answer, from what we see so far, is yes. And it has to do with three things artificial intelligence doesn't deliver on its own. The first is defining the goal. An agent is brilliant at reaching a target, but terrible at deciding which target is worth it. It doesn't know what matters, what's right, what your company or your life should pursue. That comes from values and context, which are human. The second is judgment under real ambiguity, that moment when there's no right answer, only hard choices with consequences for people. The machine optimizes. It doesn't carry the weight of deciding between two paths that both hurt someone. The third is responsibility. When an agent errs badly, someone has to answer for it, and you can't sue an algorithm or fire a line of code. Responsibility requires a subject, a human who takes it on. Notice that the three things left aren't technical. They're exactly judgment, agency, and the capacity to give meaning. The same ones this channel has been saying, episode after episode, rise in value. It's no coincidence. In every transition, what resists is the same human core. But resisting isn't the same as being safe, and there's a dangerous hole right in the middle of this new way of working. Here lies a risk that grows quietly and is worth facing head-on, the accountability hole. When a person delegates a task to an agent, and that agent delegates to another, and the result comes out wrong and causes real harm, a financial error, an unfair decision, a dangerous piece of advice, who answers? The chain of delegation gets so long and so automatic that responsibility can dilute until it belongs to no one. Each points at the previous agent. The agent can't be held responsible, and the harm is left orphaned. This is a serious problem, and it's not technical, it's institutional and legal. Our laws, contracts, and insurance were built for a world where whoever executes is a person. When whoever executes is a swarm of self-coordinating machines, that framework creaks. The honest projection is that there'll be a turbulent period where agent errors happen faster than society can make rules to handle them. The same mismatch between fast technology and slow institutions we saw in other episodes. The practical lesson for you today is counterintuitive. In a world of easy delegation, the most valuable thing you offer may be precisely taking responsibility, being the human who puts their name on it, who vouches, who answers, because that the machine doesn't do. And this points to the one skill that may matter more than all the others from here on. There's a strange new skill this era demands, and it's harder than it sounds. Commanding intelligences you don't fully understand. Think about it. A human manager could, in theory, do their team's work. They just lacked the time. But how do you direct an agent that solves a problem in a way you wouldn't know how to solve, and maybe can't even follow? This already happens with managers who lead specialists more technical than they are, but it goes to another level with the machine. The answer isn't to understand every detail. It's to develop a kind of judgment about results, not about processes. You stop evaluating how the task was done and start evaluating whether the result is good, reliable, aligned with what you wanted. It's managing by output, not by execution. And this demands a rare combination: humility to admit the machine does certain things better, and skepticism not to swallow everything it delivers as truth. Trust and verify at the same time. Whoever develops that balance becomes invaluable. Whoever falls to either extreme is in trouble. Those who trust blindly become hostages to errors they don't notice. Those who distrust everything and want to check each step lose the very advantage of delegation and fall behind. The sweet spot in the middle is an art, and it's probably the central competence of the next decade's worker. Now combine all of this with the other forces this channel has already mapped. Now let the Nixialist lens join this with what we've already built. We saw artificial intelligence agents take over knowledge work. We saw robots advance on the physical. We saw life stretch and the old diploma lose its value. This episode adds a piece that was missing. It's not just that the machine executes the work. It's that it's learning to coordinate the work itself, and that closes a loop. If the machine executes and coordinates, then the human contribution concentrates more and more at the top of the chain, deciding what to do, why to do it, and answering for the result. Work, as the effort of executing, shrinks. Work, as direction and judgment, grows. Notice this isn't an isolated prediction about software technology. It's the same movement that shows up in every domain we've studied. In all of them, the mechanical and repetitive part migrates to the machine, and what's left for the human is what demands meaning, choice, and responsibility. The org chart dissolving is just the organizational version of that deeper law. The companies, careers, and even nations that understand this will stop competing on who has more people executing and start competing on who has the best judgment orchestrating. And if that reading is right, it radically changes what's worth developing in yourself starting today. Before we land, I need to slow the enthusiasm with a real danger, because the ease of delegating has a trap built in. When you start handing everything to the agents, you risk losing, little by little, your own ability to do and to understand. It's like a skill that atrophies from disuse. We've already lived a small version of this. Many people can't get anywhere without their phone's map because they outsourced their sense of direction. Now imagine that with thinking, analysis, writing, deciding. If the generation that grows up delegating everything to the machine never develops the muscle to reason on its own, it becomes dangerously dependent, unable to notice when the machine is wrong because it no longer has the repertoire to judge. And then the orchestrator becomes a king without a kingdom, signing off on things they don't understand. So the sensible projection isn't to delegate everything blindly. It's to delegate execution and preserve judgment. To keep understanding enough to truly command, not just push buttons. The balance, again, is everything. Use the machine to amplify your capability, not to replace it to the point where you have no capability left. Whoever outsources execution and keeps discernment thrives. Whoever outsources their own brain hands over the helm. And that brings us to what to do in practice from now on. So, in practice, what to do with all this? And I repeat that it's reasoning, not career advice for your specific case. But the pattern that emerges is quite clear. First, start practicing orchestration now, even on a small scale. Take one of your tasks and try directing it with agents instead of doing it all by hand. The skill of delegating well to the machine is learned by doing, and whoever starts early gets a head start. Second, invest in what the machine doesn't do. In judgment, in understanding people and contexts, in knowing which problem is worth solving. The more execution becomes a commodity, the more discernment becomes your edge. Third, deliberately cultivate your ability to do, even what you delegate, so you never become a hostage. Understand enough of what you command to notice when it's wrong. And fourth, become the person who takes responsibility. In a world of infinite delegation, whoever puts their name on it, vouches and answers, is worth gold. None of this depends on you being a programmer or a genius. It depends on a shift in posture. Stop measuring your worth by how much you execute, and start measuring it by how well you direct, decide, and answer for the result. The old org chart is dissolving. What comes in its place is still being drawn, and you can be the one who draws it, or the one who's drawn out. Now let me argue honestly against myself, because thinking well about the future demands doubting your own enthusiasm. It's quite possible the agents disappoint, or at least take far longer than the hype promises. First, reliability is still fragile. Self-verification helps, but an agent checking another agent can be just as wrong as it is. Two blind men don't see better than one. In tasks where errors are costly, companies will probably keep a human in the loop for a long time. Second, history mocks anyone who announces that this time full automation has arrived. We've heard the office would go paperless, that nobody would drive anymore, that the factory would be fully automatic, and reality came slower and messier. Third, trust takes time. Even if the technology works, people and organizations are slow to hand important decisions to a machine, out of a healthy mix of prudence and fear. I take all of this seriously. But notice the asymmetry that matters for you. Even in the slow, partial version, the direction doesn't change. Orchestration is already worth more than pure execution, today, now, even if the agents still stumble. You don't need to bet on the extreme scenario for the preparation to be worth it. By the end, the intelligent stance isn't to believe the hype or dismiss it. It's to position yourself for both worlds, and that's exactly what this reading allows. So let me reveal what all of this really means, with no hype and no alarm. It's a projection, not a prophecy. The org chart, that structure of boxes that organized work for more than a century, was a technology for coordinating humans when coordinating was expensive. Artificial intelligence is dropping the cost of coordinating to a level so low that the old structure starts to lose its reason to exist. It's not that companies will end, it's that their shape will change profoundly, from pyramids of people executing to small cores of people directing swarms of machines. And your role in this story isn't predetermined. The same technology that can make you obsolete, if you insist on competing as an executor, can make you powerful, if you learn to orchestrate. The difference isn't in the machine, It's in how you position yourself before it. Those who understand early that work is shifting from doing to directing will command a capability no generation ever had. Those who keep defining their worth by the quantity of execution will compete and lose against a swarm that never sleeps. The boxes are dissolving. The question is no longer where you sit in the org chart. It's whether you'll be the one who conducts the orchestra or the one it replaces. And nobody will hand you that answer ready-made. That's why this channel exists. Let's land, because diagnosis without action is just anxiety with a pretty chart. And I'll stress it one last time. Nothing here is career or investment advice for your case. It's a map for you to think with. If this reading makes sense, 3 moves are worth it starting today. First, stop measuring your worth by how much you execute alone, and start measuring it by how much you can direct, decide, and vouch for. That's the currency that rises. Second, learn to orchestrate in practice, today, on even a small task, because that skill is only won by doing, and the best time to start was yesterday. The second best is now. Third, protect your judgment. Delegate execution, but never the ability to know when the result is wrong, because that's what separates the orchestrator from the hostage. The end of the org chart isn't the end of human work. It's the end of one kind of work, being a cog of coordination, and the beginning of another, being the mind that conducts. The machines will handle execution. What's left for you is the hardest and most human part, deciding where all of this points, and taking the helm. You just picked up the map. Now it's on you. Here on Nextulus Future, we don't recap the news. We project what it means for your life. If this map served you, subscribe and hit the bell. This is the first episode of a new cycle on the forces redrawing work and life. Coming up next, the robot that will live in your home, the reversal of aging, and the energy hunger of artificial intelligence. And tell me in the comments, today, do you feel more like an executor or an orchestrator? Until next Thursday,